coming, and thanks again to Jen for spearheading this. The cluster is always looking for more parent volunteers if any of you guys are interested. We do want to get right to it. I've already had a request from Claire because she has so much homework, so she will have to sneak out soon enough. My name is Fran Shim. For those of you I do not know, I have kids at La Jolla Elementary, Muirlands Middle, and La Jolla High, and I'm going to let this distinguished panel introduce themselves, starting with our surprise celebrity guest, Mike Strong, who you might have seen from Inside the Movie.
I'm Mike Strong from High Tech High. I've been teaching at a couple of High Tech High schools and middle schools for about 12 years. Yeah, 12. This is my 12th year, so almost 12 years at the end of a couple of months from now. And I teach English and history. We call it humanities. They get social science and English language arts credits for me.
I'm Claire. I'm a senior here at La Jolla High School. I'm Sarah. I'm a senior at La Jolla High School.
Julie Latta, and I teach 6th grade science at Muirlands.
Harlan Klein, I am proud to be the principal at Muirlands.
Jim Solo, the Executive Director of Leadership and Learning for San Diego Unified and the former principal of Torrey Pines Elementary.
I'm Mitzi Marino, Area 5 Superintendent, and La Jolla High alumni, and Muirlands alumni, and back in the day, La Jolla Elementary, before La Jolla Elementary was there, I'm sorry, Scripps Elementary, back in the shores, so a long time ago. And parent of a student who graduated in 2013.
I'm Chuck Bedorski, principal at La Jolla High School. I'm very proud to be here.
Donna Trippi, principal of La Jolla Elementary.
Sarah Ott, principal of Torrey Pines.
We are going to jump right in with some prepared questions just to get you guys thinking, so please write down any questions you had and you can hand them, wave them around. Jen will come by and pick them up. The first one, and because it is a very large panel and we do want to get people out here, we're going to try and limit it to 30 seconds, a minute per answer, but anyone who wants to answer, please, by all means. We just saw amazing examples of collaboration and creativity to support deep learning and well-being. What story from the film had the most impact, and where do you see similar innovation here in our cluster schools?
There were a lot of things in the movie that I really enjoyed, but I think one that really jumps out is the work we're doing in our district right now, and it's happening at High Tech High. The work around equity, that all students have an opportunity to be taught at a very high level, no matter of their race, their income, or anything. They're not segregating children by test scores, or GATE scores, or seminar scores, but every child has that opportunity to grow and flourish, and I think that's important.
I think the work that we're doing, particularly in this cluster around the growth mindset and teachers and adults using choice words that promote student agency and a growth mindset is really a strength, and something we heard in the film around students who are agents for their own learning and setting goals for themselves actually have more buy-in. They actually will work harder for a goal they set for themselves than for any goal a teacher and adult sets for them.
This is our second time we had a chance to preview it, and I think each time the movie gets more powerful. The one that spoke to me most was the student that started the school within a school concept. As a high school principal, I think I'm lucky enough to be on the end of the spectrum that you really see students that are just at their peak of maturity and going off to do amazing things. And so oftentimes as adults, we step forward and have the microphone, and really we should be stepping back and handing the microphone to the students. So that's what I'm looking forward to, being a part of the creating process here.
Okay, and I think all of the work, as Mitzi said, with the growth mindset and having kids really understand their strength and really use them in the classroom. We're doing a lot of work with collaborative conversations, so students are really working together more than they ever have, and I think that's all of the work we've been doing with Common Core, more rigorous and challenging tasks that we're giving kids, and I see examples of it daily in the classroom, so it's really exciting. I think the last couple of years with Common Core has really changed the face of what we're doing. I'm looking at Joan Boyle because
Some of the work with the robotics that I see her doing in the afternoons with kids, they're just doing all of that work that you saw in Twiggs County. And so I thought that was really interesting. You go in there and you watch the kids and they never look up. They're just doing the work together and just working so hard at it, and it's amazing. I was going to say that I think one of the struggles as a teacher is all the content, and they use the term all the content to push through. And one thing I'm really excited about, we rolled out at Muirlands in 6th grade the NGSS standards. And there are less content standards to push through, and so there's more time for us to allow kids to actually work together and to collaborate. The other thing that stood out for me was teachers talking at me, and the idea of being talked at, which I think all teachers know that that's not the best way to teach, but when you have a great deal of content to get through, there has to be some portion where you just kind of barrel through for a little while and hope that they're traveling along with you, and then you can stop and do something more meaningful. I think that we have an opportunity now with NGSS where we're not doing that as much. We don't need to do that much. We don't feel that the content, there's fewer content standards, so we have time to do the good work. And then the last thing was the teachers thinking for us. I think through the work we've been doing at Muirlands, we're really working on having the kids do most of the thinking, and we're facilitating. And then the last thing was this term pathologized difference, and I think this is something that we need to really start straying away from.
I have this question directly for the students, if they would prefer to answer this one instead. From your unique perspective, what does it mean to be a successful student at our schools and in the world at large today?
To answer your question, I think it's the ability to know when to ask for help. Because in my case, I remember junior year, I came in and I was like, whoa, what is college? You know, I have no idea of what to do. And that's when I realized that I really needed help. So I went to my counselor, Ms. Kay, and she really did a lot to help me out in the college process. And I think that if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be going to college today.
Woohoo, Miss Kay!
That's very, very, like, my mind is blown, but you got yourself into college, you're amazing. And I'm just glad to know it. That is so interesting.
At least for me, I think even with how school is now, it's really how much effort you put into school. I mean, it's easy to complain about something, about a project a teacher gives you or an essay you have to write, but just taking it seriously and putting in the time to actually do the work, I think it does help. I think changing the way we do that will help immensely also, but I think you kind of get what you put in, and I think there's just not a ton of motivation from people just because it's easier to complain about something you're not excited about.
Do you want to answer about how students, as a student at high tech, are they would see success?
Yeah, I think they would find a very unique way. I would hope so, at least. I think that the principal from Trigg County, I got to spend a lot of time with him. He was out a lot. He bothered me at lunch for many, many days. Bought me lunch a couple times, so it was worth it. I think that our job is to give them the most elegant, which is simple. They should be synonymous. Elegant and simple are the same. A famous jazz bass player, Charles Mingus, said that making the simple complicated is commonplace, but making the complicated seem simple is genius. And I think a simple and elegant way is designing the on-ramp for them to become adults, right? And we see it. I have an advisory, 9th through 12th grade. I teach freshmen right now, but I have an advisory 9th through 12th graders. And they're all over the place. I have students that I'm struggling to get into college. I don't think you struggled. You're very, very eloquent, and you seem nice. You're probably fine. But I have students that it was a bit of battle. I have one student in particular. He was in my advisory. I taught middle school for 6 years. He was in my advisory for 3 years of middle school and 4 years of high school now. So I've had him for 7 years. Every life dilemma possible has happened to him. And he really identifies, I haven't seen this before, with the kid who became a writer. And the kid got a fat merit scholarship to Bennington College. And Bennington College is one of the best writing programs in America. It's this amazing school out on the East Coast. But giving him space and then letting him talk about his work to me, and him giving me the right to talk back to him about his work and struggle with it and fight with it, and maybe not do all the things that are required and just focus on something that's kind of the thing he's into at the time, gave him an avenue into the adult conversation, into the adult world. And so success for our students, I think, is how quickly and how articulately and how fluently students can enter the adult playground.
This question could be for anybody, and don't feel obligated to answer, because obviously this panel is very filled with many very, very well-known and well-spoken people. What is needed from the adults in our schools, home, or community, the people in this room as well as other community members, to help students achieve their goals and dreams? And I would love to hear from the students on that one too. But all the adults, what is needed to help these students achieve their goals and dreams? Somebody has to answer. Okay, I'll start.
So I believe as the adults, we have to make sure that we have relationships with the students that we serve, and that we ask them and get to know them and form relationships with them so that we can teach them, because we have to make it relevant for them if it's going to be meaningful to them. So we've done some work in our district. We've had many speakers who are helping us think through what it means to be a confident learner, and what it means for leaders and teachers, and what we may have to do differently in order to engage each and every student. And it's around, a lot of it's around a relationship, it's around love, it's around caring and kindness. The idea that you actually have to have a relationship and students need to be able to see themselves in their classrooms really matters. And I could talk forever, but there's a big panel and we definitely want to know what the students think. But that's, we've been studying how the brain works and what the brain needs around relationships, around meaningful work. So Dr. Yvette Jackson, Jeff Andrade Duncan, Pedro Noguera, we've had wonderful guest speakers who are helping us learn what we need to do differently in our classrooms as adults. So, recommended reading.
And one speaker she didn't talk to, but it's coming out next week to work with our math teachers, was Jo Bowler, who you saw from Stanford in the movie. So she's coming out to work with our district math teachers next week. That question was a lot about community that was asked, and you know, I think we need to find different ways to engage our community, and I have a couple of examples of what are working well in our district right now. Our executive director of secondary schools works very closely with Qualcomm, and Qualcomm next year is going to give the strength inventory to every 8th grader to help develop their 4-year plan. And without Qualcomm, we could not do that. And the other example that I have is Claremont High School has done some incredible reform. And I was out there recently, and they have mentors, and they have not a mentor just for selected students. They have a mentor from the community, from business, for every single child at that school. That's pretty phenomenal.
One of the things that comes to mind is just the concept of failure in general. I often caution parents to think differently about failure, not necessarily an antithesis to success. In fact, failure can be part of the successful process. So one of the things that I would just suggest is to honor the process of learning, not necessarily just the end result product. And sometimes I think that's overemphasized. Students making meaning and collaborating and using critical thinking skills and expanding their creativity and communication skills is something that doesn't happen automatically and naturally. It's something they have to work at, and it's something that they can develop and improve upon. that part of the learning process is what we want to capitalize on now to prepare them for that type of thinking, and it is the focus on thinking so they can be successful in college and career at a later date. I think there's an overemphasis on the end product, and I think that's an endangerment to the process of learning. And I just think that in general, every student has a responsibility and a right to be engaged in the thinking and learning process. The teacher more in a role of facilitator, and parents definitely that three-legged stool supporting their child in developing their skills, but also allowing them. As a parent myself, it's very disconcerting if you think about failure as a very negative thing, and that risk avoidance of failure, I think, is a detriment to students in general.
I was just going to piggyback on that, just to say I think there's 3 ways that we manage in schools, and I think in our homes as well. I'm also a La Jolla High parent and kids who came through the system from K through 12. You can manage through knowledge, which I think is often what teachers do. They hold all the knowledge and they release it as a way of sort of maintaining power in the classroom and management in the classroom. You can just use raw power, I'm the adult and you'll do what I'll say, or you can use personality. And if you use personality, it does engender that trust. And when that trust is engendered, then kids are willing to take those risks and to be braver. I'm seeing it in my classroom. I've seen it for years, but I can't emphasize enough, having less content to teach allows me to really expand upon that more than I've ever been able to. And I don't think anyone enters the room or any situation or wakes up in the morning and says, today I'll fail. I think everybody wakes up and says, today I'm going to try to succeed. And if we allow our kids the opportunity to show what they've got, it's pretty impressive.
Students, I would love to hear as a parent what you guys, not just of your teachers and your admin, but also of your parents.
Yeah, I want to make a comment on that actually. So last year I did my taxes for the first time, and it was a pretty amazing experience. I had no idea what I was doing. So the lady was like, oh yeah, state taxes and federal taxes, and I was just like nodding and saying, oh yeah, sure, yeah, totally. But what I realized was that those skills are what we really need to succeed in life, and I think that those skills should be taught in school, because that's what's most important to me. For example, also, we get taught how to do the Pythagorean theorem and how to do like all these crazy mathematical equations, but we don't really know how to balance a checkbook. We don't know how to create a resume, how to make a cover letter, how to do public speaking. And I think those skills are what's really needed to be a professional success in this society. And also what leads me to talk about the SAT. We can't really boycott the SAT because it's really important to colleges and everything. But what we can do is maybe teach our students how to really take the SAT. I know that avid teachers give books out and say, oh yeah, just study this book and you'll be fine. But then why is it that students who take who pay hundreds of dollars in SAT prep classes get higher scores than students who don't? So it's really, it's food for thought. So I think it's really important that we really teach our students what's really needed to succeed in this society, which is not the Pythagorean theorem, in my opinion.
And adding to that, I think we have such incredible access to our community members. I think parents and family members we have such a we're surrounded by so many successful people that having the support of parents and starting a program where if you're an engineer and we start a program where once a month all the kids who are thinking about being an engineer can go and talk to somebody who wants to help you and has connections, who can offer you an internship or something to grow within what you're already interested in. I think all of you are here. I mean, all of you are incredible, and I think starting something like that would be incredibly beneficial to students.
I have two thoughts. The first is ask the questions that we were kind of always told we weren't supposed to ask. Like, what's the point? And why do I need to know this? And make those dinner table conversations without judgment. You know, like let them sit and whine and knowing that you love them and be a sounding board. You guys are glaring at me now, that's great. So ask those questions, let them talk about it, let them wrestle with it with you and kind of be a partner with them in it. And if you feel so inclined, you could take it upstairs and let your questions be asked, and you have a right to do that. You pay all of our salaries. So I went to one of my college professors one time and I said, I think you need to change what you're doing because I pay your salary. And it was one of the most liberating things I ever said in my whole life. But it's true. It's like you're tithing to the school district. They should do something. And I think right. And I don't remember what my second one was now. But
Can you talk about the internships? Can you talk about the internships?
Yeah, and I think finding the connections. We have an internship program at High Tech High. Every sophomore at our schools has a sort of job exploration period at the end of their sophomore year. It's also when they get introduced to the college experience, they build ambiance accounts. You guys have done these things. Those of you who have had upper division students, upper level students. Our juniors all begin the college process immediately. Every student from our school spends multiple days every school year touring colleges with groups of students and teachers. So their freshman year, they're going to 4 or 5 schools. I coach cross country and track. I mentioned a little plug for it in the movie. I travel to meets in Oregon. We go to Stanford. We're going to Hawaii next year. We're going to these places, and when we're going, we go see 4 or 5 schools while we're there. Take kids on tours, and they often end up going to some of those schools. So as a college-going culture, also the end of their junior year, they have an internship, 6 weeks, where they spend a large portion of every day at a job site, shadowing somebody who's in a field that they're interested in. And at the end of that, we take our sophomore students, who are a year behind them, to those sites to listen to them present the work that they've been doing. And it's pretty powerful when a lot of times they find out they really love the thing. Pretty much equally, they find out that they really did not want to be a veterinarian anymore because there's a lot of stuff to deal with. But yeah, getting them into the real world, and parents can do that, I think. Like, find opportunities. Somebody mentioned it down the table. Get them, you have a friend that's doing something interesting, stick your kid with them. You know, have them do some real world stuff as soon as possible.
Hi, Fran, I'm just going to say something real quick. One more thing about the community, and we're trying to do this in the district as well, is we want great people to become educators. I think when we talk about a community effort, I hear a lot of people talk about they want their kids to be doctors and scientists. Educators, I mean, teachers are the ones that are making the change in education, and we need amazing, wonderful, devoted teachers to come back and be the kids that said, we should do this, come, let's do it. You know, that's what we want. We want people motivated and dedicated. So a community event to raise some wonderful teachers to help.
This is a 3-part question. The movie showed a lot of self-directed and project-based learning. How do we do more of this? How do you train your teachers to teach that? And how often do the teachers get trained at High Tech High for this?
Yeah, I'll answer that last part first. We meet a lot. I don't know how many professional development days the district has. We have about 20. Yeah, some people's heads popped up. We meet about 2 straight weeks before the school year starts every day, required to be there, tuning our projects, which means taking the work we're planning on doing and getting it critiqued by peers, by experts, by administration, all that kind of stuff. We also have a few days at the end of the school year, and we have a couple of days every, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 days every semester where we don't have students at all, an in-service type day, where we are also looking at our work, testing our work, coming to places like this that are also doing really cool stuff and touring what our neighborhood schools or schools around the country do. We make it really easy for our faculty also to get out and you saw my friend Randy went to Kentucky to work with those schools. I would say on any given day, we have maybe 100 visitors at our school, and we have at least, out of the 400 or 500 people that work for High Tech High, there's probably 10 or 20 that are out around the country doing something somewhere. We call it cross-pollination, like we're pollinating all over the place and taking other people's ideas, ourselves also. I don't remember the first two parts, it was a long question.
How do we do more, oh, this is probably not for you now. How do we do more of this, and how can we train our teachers to do this in our class?
So I'm just going to start low. At the elementary level, you saw one of the schools starting how it's a process, and I think we've already started that process with a lot of problem-based learning. So I know we said project, but kind of starts with problem-based. So in the elementary level, when they're with the same teacher, we have the opportunity to really get to know the kids and have them collaborating on literature and math problems. And a lot of times, community members are like, what's coming home? Well, it's in the classroom, the thinking work. So we've already started on that trajectory.
I was just going to address the amount of time that our teachers have, release time for professional development. Last year with Common Core funds that we had for 3 years, and we gave every school, every teacher in the district 10 days of professional development, and we were criticized for that. They were out of the classroom too much. So, it's difficult to balance. So we're doing more site-based now. So what we're doing is we're giving sites money to create their own professional learning communities, how they best see fit, as they work with their teachers. So that could be up to 10 days, it could be more than 10 days, it could be less than 10 days.
I'll say what I think is really working right now is we really are doing a lot more project-based learning even than when you guys were in school or in Muirlands. And I think one of the main reasons is that everybody has a computer in front of them all the time. And so they basically have the facts at their fingertips. So we as teachers don't have to really make sure that we drill and kill them with the facts. We actually can allow them to use the facts to apply them to a project. And I was just telling Donna earlier tonight that I basically have done away with sort of the list of vocabulary because I find it's almost insulting to my students now to make them write down a word and a definition because they're using the terminology. And I think in my next unit I'm just going to eliminate it altogether because they just simply don't need it. It's not that they don't know the vocabulary, they're using the vocabulary. In the 21st century, it almost requires that you go to project-based learning. When you have the facts at your fingertips and don't have to learn them, all you can do is apply them and use them in a collaborative way. Our kids are using through, Muirlands has become a Google Pilot school, and so our kids are becoming extremely adept at using all the Google apps and doing real-time collaboration with each other. And so the kids who are sort of struggling, I liked when they said in the video about having real-world, high-quality real-world examples. Well, those are at their fingertips. And they see it among their classmates in the group that they're working on, either from home or in the classroom. They're actually, the kids who are struggling a little bit are sort of watching as the other kids work and drafting off of that learning and then modeling their learning upon that and then growing the group as a whole. The kids who are really kind of pushing the learning are also able to excel and to push their learning as far as they want to because there really is no limit to it. I wanted to also just mention too that the other day I took one of my colleagues' classes while she was over, I think at Lohr Elementary. She has a kindergartner who was doing something fancy around the morning pledge. And in her classroom they were working on making gallery guides and doing project-based learning with the gallery guides. And then back in my class, we were doing project-based learning where the kids were really directing and learning, doing collaborative projects related to organ systems. And then across the way, the 8th grade teachers the kids are building rockets and testing rockets. And again, I'm going to mention how having less content they're gonna test those rockets and then rebuild them and learn from their mistakes. And that's something with the Next Generation Science Standards we've really been able to do, which is the learning happens and then the kids learn from the mistakes and have a chance to actually revamp and create a new model, which has been really wonderful.
We are running out of time, so I'm just going to kind of go through some of these questions because it seems like we have a lot in the area of potential constraints for our cluster of schools to teach this way. Number of teachers it would take, the time, master schedule, willingness of the teachers to give discretionary effort, willingness of the teachers to learn how to teach this way. What are some potential ways we could overcome this, and is this a potential possibility? That's a loaded question, but I had to ask you.
I do want to just jump in and say that we have to, if we want to do some of the things that we're seeing in the video and they're doing at High Tech High, we have to do something about the schedule. We're coming up on block scheduling during testing, and most of us are looking forward to it, having extended time with our kids, because I agree with what they said in the video. It's ridiculous to think you're in a business you would have success when a bell rings and everyone jumps up and runs away. And it does feel like that. It does feel like that.
Teachers would prefer block scheduling?
I don't want to speak for all teachers, but I do know that I've heard a lot of buzz around when we get to block scheduling. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I can do this, and I can do that. And I don't know. I mean, we'd have to survey them, but I don't think it would meet with a lot of resistance. I mean, I think they're open to it. So scheduling, I don't know. That's for these people to figure out.
You know, Julie, I'm glad you brought that up because that is important. Longer classes are critical if you're going to do project-based learning. And when I talk about Claremont High School and the success and the changes they've made, they've gone to a 4x4 schedule. So students are in their class upwards of 2 hours. So that's something that's really helped Claremont. So now Chuck's going to do it in La Jolla.
Absolutely. I just wanted to say, I certainly can't speak to long-term staffing needs, but what I can say is that I completely believe that change can happen with currently what we have, but it's going to take all of us coming together, the parents and the students, and really believing. We talked about the trajectory and being on that trajectory together. I, kind of piggybacking on what Claire was saying, I look out and I see so much support from the community, and I'm going to ask that while it's difficult as principals, that you continue to push us. And I look, and I'll just use a couple examples that I think are really relevant. Laura Jackson has really been kind of the strong advocate for the STEAM and our STEAM work at the cluster level, but so much so that she's at my door and Chuck, what can we do? We brought a group of professionals from up on the Mesa and we started talking about this idea of incubator space, think tanks for our students. Craig and the great group of people that are looking at the Biotech Center. So I think that's what I want as principal. Not only, you know how to do it, many times much more effectively than we do. I know the education piece, I've been there, but you've seen strong teams of people work, you've seen the industry sector, so continue pushing us, and I'll be right there alongside you, we'll be right there alongside you.
It certainly can't be mandated, right? Anything is possible, but I think we heard loud and clear that when these efforts are supported in their grassroots effort, and we have a shared vision for what's possible for our students, and we're not satisfied with where we are now, we can work together to get anywhere. It's going to be something that happens in La Jolla because La Jolla is putting the time and energy and dedication into thinking differently about what school could become.
I have another hot button topic, and I hope you don't hate me afterwards. Standardized testing. How can we, assessments and testing, making it optional, any changes?
That's kind of my department. We can't do anything about CASC, which is SBAC. I mean, that is state mandated. I mean, you can certainly opt out. You didn't hear me say that, but you can certainly opt out of that test. Shush. But something we're looking at for next year is really pretty much eliminating any of the district assessments and having them grassroots and come from the schools themselves because they know best what they should be assessing their students on because all of our schools are unique and different.
we had I want you to know that the teachers hate those tests as much as you do. Yeah. And we just had a union meeting last week, and our area union guy, I don't know, rep, what is, yeah, he was saying that there's such a groundswell of opposition, and it's really sort of this confluence of parents and teachers. You know, it's getting to a fever pitch of frustration with the whole testing mentality and the high stakes federal test. The federal government has said that it's up to the states to sort of penalize the local school districts, and the feeling is, at least this is what our rep told us, is that the state legislators are not going to impose any penalties because they know that the communities, both the professional teaching community and the parent community, are so against it. So he was saying it's become too unpopular, and that they don't think that we're going to lose our funding, and because that's sort of the threat, is that if you don't do it, we'll lose funding and so on. And at least his sense was that we wouldn't. Now, I don't want to be quoted on that, but I think that there is certainly a push, and keep pushing.
How does high tech handle it?
You don't want to hear. I couldn't tell you our test scores. I've never been told. I mean, we take them. I hear that they only have to take them once now. We just don't. It's not something that we worry about. And I think that for you guys, for parents, you're in a really good district. Like, this is not a conversation between schools that are really struggling. This is excellence and rigor are continuums. And you all are part of a community that's actually doing really well and wants to do better on that continuum. So we're not here in a major dilemma necessarily. We're here because we have good and we want great, right? And that's where you all are. I hope you understand that. I've been to places, I've consulted a lot of schools, it's nothing like this. So you're in a good space. I think we should establish that, and you probably have over and over again. We take the state tests. We do fine, I hear. Maybe we get one of those like safe harbor things every once in a while, or a program improvement year one thing every once in a while. I don't know. My daughter went to Alcott Elementary, which is up in Claremont, right up here in Bayhill area, and we got a letter from her school. It was like year 4, and here's a list of schools you can transfer to. And I was like, what the hell is this thing? This is crazy. It's just not something we worry about. And I remembered the second thing I was going to say to parents from the previous question, and it was stop being afraid, and don't let your students jump onto something we've struggled with and our country has struggled with for 20 years, which is operating in fear. I don't think that that's a good modus for anybody, and I definitely don't think it's a good dialogue or filter for dialogue between a community and its schools at all. So I don't know. Testing is not something we talk about. We don't do test prep. I wish my students did not receive those envelopes with numbers on them. I really wish they didn't get those at home. I think that in a lot of areas in San Diego Unified School District, we happen to be a somewhat segregated community based on zip code. It's a thing that has happened in the building of our town. A lot of work is being done. La Jolla has been a part of the work that's been done to help kind of break that up. I'm happy for the things that La Jolla has done, but I just don't think that it's cool that there are 6-year-old first graders in certain zip codes getting letters home that they're in such a low percentile in reading or writing, and it makes them feel dumb because their parents don't speak the language, or because their families don't come from expectation, right? And in other areas, the test score says you're really great. So it's a necessary evil. We tell our students that, and the dialogue between my students and I about testing is, you have to do this thing. Please try hard. It has something to do with us operating. Just don't fill in patterns and don't write your name in bubbles. Do your best and trust that the experience that you've had is valuable enough and is going to equip you enough to at least satisfy whoever it is that is making a lot of money from making the decision that this is what's on the test.
You know, and I think we found last year with Smarter Balance testing, the first year we did Smarter Balance testing, we didn't know what to expect, we didn't know what was going to be on it. We were working hard to teach the students the Common Core. We did a lot of working with collaborative conversations, teaching them how to learn, teaching them how to persevere through challenges, just teaching them how to be learners. And we found our test scores were so much better than we anticipated, just because kids, we just taught the curriculum and we taught them how to be learners, and they just approached the test and persevered through it and showed what they knew, and they did beautifully. So it really, we didn't do test prep at all last year. No test prep. I mean, but we found when there's an alignment of the curriculum with what's being taught, with what's being tested, it's really not an issue. I mean, you know, they did so much better because they know how to learn, and they know what, they learned things so much more, they internalized so much more of what we were teaching them, that they do well on the testing.
You know, I think we have to remember that, and I'm sure that when this was filmed, we were under No Child Left Behind. That was a federal law that required testing. It put testing as very, very high stakes. And I have to not really thank the media, because during the time I was principal at Torrey Pines, it became very competitive, because the only thing that they would publish in the newspaper were the standardized test scores, and how one school did against another. Now I'm very competitive, and I know Donna's very competitive, so we wanted to make sure No Child Left Behind, our school was doing really well. And they were doing probably the top in the county at that time. But we've evolved from that. And the current standardized testing is nothing like No Child Left Behind, which is a good thing.
You really have. I hope the crowd knows I was joking when I said, oh, I can't get fired. The one thing I worried about when I watched this was that we would think automatically, let's all opt out of testing. Is that really the answer? What I think we know is, if our superintendent were here, if you've ever heard her speak, the very first thing she'll say is a child is way more than a test score. There is so much that a child brings that measures their success. And a test score is a tiny, tiny thing. And schools shouldn't be measured by that, and communities shouldn't be measured by that. It is important, the shift that you heard Jim Solo mention earlier around what we believe is most valuable are the tests that teachers give that are aligned to the curriculum that they're teaching. And so as we move away from district mandated assessments, we're going to be putting in the hands of our teachers, what is it you think is important, how will you measure, and you tell us how your students are doing, because that's what we think is really the driver of instructional improvement, is when teachers are paying attention to how students learn what they're teaching and make adjustments every day.
I do want to be respectful of time, so I wanted to offer anyone closing thoughts if you had some.
Can I just bring up, then why are we increasing AP, Mitzi? Why are we increasing APs? I'm going to say it at every meeting, I've promised that.
So does everyone in the audience know that the high schools in San Diego have a goal to increase access for underrepresented students in our district? It's around equity. So when we looked at the students who are currently accessing AP courses, we saw a discrepancy between Black and brown students and our white and Asian students. And so we're working with, I use EOS, but I don't know what EOS stands for, Equal Opportunity. Helping to identify students who actually have demonstrated who have potential, who believe that they would do well in AP, who have just not had access in the past. So each high school, if they have an equity gap in terms of offering, are being asked to look closely at students who represent the equity challenge, and to see if they can't identify students who would be successful, and then provided the necessary supports, partnered with that success. So it's not just about increasing AP tests at classes for everybody, it's about increasing access for students who in the past have had the barrier at times was us.
Well, and I think everybody would agree with that, but when you look at a school like La Jolla High, and we are in our cluster, so, you know, those of us that go here, whose kids go here, we have a whole lot of AP classes. We also have a whole lot of teachers who are amazing teachers, that if we could encourage them somehow, instead of teaching that subject in an AP manner where you have to race through the book and then, you know, get to that test in May, to say, you know what, we trust you. You know this content. Why don't you create an amazing honors class in it? You still open it up to all the students. That teacher could grab that subject, go really deep in it, not have to rely on a textbook created by stupid College Board, and we would have some really exciting. First of all, we'd have excited teachers because I think it would turn them on.
I love you, but this is why I'm up here is to.
Yeah, so that was more for Chuck. We have too much.
I would like to just make a closing statement, which is, I asked both my kids independently recently. My daughter's a senior in college, and my son's been out kind of working for a year and a half. He graduated a year and a half ago. You know, what did they think was the most important skill they needed for success? And independently of each other, and my son even called it his superpower, was problem solving. And I think that is something that has to drive all of the work that we do, is turning our kids and making sure they have opportunities to solve real problems, to build confidence in solving problems, to collaborate with others as they solve problems, to make mistakes, to correct or to amend those mistakes to a point where they feel some success with the problem that they're solving. So I want my final word to be that I really think that we have to keep, for me, this core issue is always going to be problem solving.
And before everyone else gets to their closing thoughts, the index cards you have on there, you know, we talked about potential block scheduling, we've talked about other potential stuff. If you guys could write down what you would like to see, and if you want to get involved to potentially make change in our cluster, whatever that may be, write it down on the card and make sure Jen gets it before you leave. Just want to give you some time to get that done beforehand.
That leads right into what I was saying. Now, what I was going to say is, you know, having people here at night, you know, when you worked all day. So I want to say thank you for everyone who could come, and that shows me that we're ready for some changes. And so what I try to present at my school is openness for things to look differently. And I think that's been a struggle that parents have had. We've had math nights, and we've talked about math looks differently than it did, and that's a good thing. We want it to. So I think that's what I took most from, is that they're doing things that look different than what we've seen before, and that's good. And that, the principal said, it might not look like my school, so La Jolla might not look like High Tech High, but it can look differently and still be meaningful. So I think we're looking, you know, I know us principals meet, we're looking on what's the different, and how do we do that to the best of what our kids need. And so all of the community support is very helpful in that.
And we didn't get to all your questions. What I'm going to do, hopefully, is put them all on a paper and email them to all of these guys, including Mike, and see what their answers are, and maybe post it up on the LaJollaCluster.com.
I'll say something. I went to Holtville High School. Does anybody know where Holtville High School is? It's past El Centro. 12 blocks by 9 blocks. All of my friends either went to the Marine Corps or they're picking lettuce. And out of 142 kids in my graduating class, 4 of us went to a 4-year college. But Mr. Goodsell was a really good English teacher. And he changed my life. So I went to a pretty crappy high school, and I'll walk over to my friend who's the principal, and I will tell him, man, you gotta change this thing, it's messed up. I went to a little high school that did not have a lot of what we usually think of as success, but there was a teacher that was awesome, and he invested in me. And he shot free throws with me in the gym, and he read my work over and over again, and he offered me books to read, and I fell in love with it. And I ended up doing well and going to college and being a literature major. And it's really a lot of, I should pay homage to Mr. Goodsell. We didn't have AP at Holtville High School. We didn't even have honors classes, because that wasn't really in the mix. But then I ended up at High Tech High. We also don't have AP. A lot of people think we're a really good school. That's great. I have a National Merit Scholar in my advisory. That's wonderful. but there are a whole bunch of teachers. You saw a couple of them in the film. There are other people that I could go on and mention. One of my really good friends that's passed away, Jay Bavra, he was our biology teacher, he was in the film. Amazing guy. It really comes down to the kid in the room with an adult who cares, who gives a rip about the kid. And I think you have that, because a lot of people are sitting in the room, and I keep like making eyes at some of the people I know are teachers. I can just tell, and they're like nodding their heads. And I keep looking right here, and I bet a lot of you guys were teachers, and you're nodding your heads, and I can see it. I could see it during the movie. I kept turning around and looking at people's eyes. And you might be a superintendent now, or you might be a principal. You're an educator, you're a teacher. That's the whole point. And so I think that you have something very special here. I hope you feel like our door is open to you. A lot of times at High Tech High, we kind of feel like an island because we have people coming from India and Kentucky and not often enough San Diego. I'm serious, I spent time with Indians today. And my family, I'm half Indian. I was just losing my mind. They put us together, like I speak Punjabi or something. I know, right? And they ordered Luna Grill, which is not Indian food, but I think that's what they were thinking. But I think that, again, cross-pollination and you guys having this forum is just incredible. And it seems like you do this more than just tonight. That's amazing. I wish we did it more often. So you're in a great place. And I think my closing word is just that. I'm glad you love my email. We're very, very open. Parents want to come and talk and see. We won't steal the kids, I promise. And I want to come back. I think I'm going to probably come next week and spend some time at La Jolla High and just kind of walk around and maybe hang out with some teachers.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, he spoke of one teacher that made a difference in his life. It should be every teacher at every school. We need to make sure that we build relationships. We need to build relationships on our campus, but more importantly, teachers and administrators need to know every child. Every child. You know what their strengths and their weaknesses are. And I know that's harder in middle school, I know it's harder in high school, but that's my firm belief. If we don't build relationships with students and know who they are, what they are, where they come from, what they're challenging every day, and it starts with a teacher, but I put administrator there too, we're not going to make a change. It really is about relationship building.
Thank you, everyone.